appear to be a little bit incongruent. But if you just kind of hang with me, I'll try to make it make sense. I want to talk about what I call a kairos moment. A kairos moment. Jewish word, a Greek word, and I know we're in the Old Testament, a kairos moment. And I'll try to make it make sense. And you might say, well, where did you get that from? Because kairos has to do with time. And it is recorded in verse number 14. If thou, Mordecai says, if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then their enlargement and deliverance shall arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed, and who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom? Watch the line. For such a time as this. And so we talk about a kairos moment. There is, the Jewish people struggled with how do you define time? How do you deal with time? And so they came up with what is called, they defined it in two ways. One, it is defined as chronos, and the other is defined as kairos. Right? Stay with me. One is defined as chronos, and you might be familiar with that because that is, I'm looking at this clock here, that is our English terminology, chronology comes out of that. Chronos, it is the tick-tock of the clock, the tick-tock of the watch, chronos. Chronology, what's your genealogy about? How does that line up? So they define time as chronos. We do that also. January, February, March, April, May, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, morning, noon, and night. It's sequential. It is chronos. It is just going around. It is now 8:34. And so it's chronos time. So that way everybody can be on the same page. We start church at 7 o'clock. So everybody know the time, and so we're able to synchronize, so to speak. But then there is another terminology that was used, and it is called kairos. And what kairos deals with, it signifies the right time, or the opportune time, or the supreme moment. It is the perfect time. In the New Testament, the terminology kairos deals with the appointed time in the purpose of God, or watch this, or it is defined as the time when God will act.
Yes, yes.
Which is interesting. It's defined as the time that God will act. So, okay, some of y'all looking at me funny. All right, let's see if I can explain a little bit better. Kairos is the supreme moment, the supreme time. It's, anybody do deer hunting? Anybody hunt? Right here. If you see people engaged in hunting, they may go up in a deer stand. It's early morning, and they're trying to kill that deer, that big 10-point, 8-point buck or whatever it is. And so they're sitting there in the crisp morning air, and all of a sudden in the clearing there is their prize. There's that deer, and he comes out, the big buck comes out, and he's right in the opening. There's nothing else around, and you got a clear shot. The buck is there, and he turns and looks at you, and the guy got his gun up, watch this, and he aims, and he's got now the deer in the crosshairs, and he gets ready to pull the trigger. Pow! That is a kairos moment. Meaning that it's the supreme time. It is the right time that you act. It's like you couldn't do it before, you couldn't do it after, but it's like right now, okay? Fishing. Anybody like fishing? Got one or two like fishing? And so I tried to call you one time and you were fishing. So you're out there fishing and you're sitting in the boat and all of a sudden you've been waiting all this time. You got the cork in the water. The cork is there. And all of a sudden after you've been waiting and waiting, you haven't gotten a bite. And all of a sudden now you see the cork start to move a little bit. It's starting to sway a little bit. And watch, then you see the cork go on the one time. And then it goes down again and you sitting there already. And boy, when it goes down into the water, it looks like it's running, and you yank it.
Yes.
That's a Kairos moment. Meaning that it was the right time. It was the right time to pull the trigger to hit the deer. It was the right time to pull the rod to get the fishing, to get the bass, fish, or whatever it was that you would get. All right, you got some kids here who sung wonderfully tonight. Here's the Kairos moment for you. When I was a little kid going to school in Laurel at Oak Point, it was elementary school at the time, 1st through 6th grade. They had what they call a merry-go-round. And this merry-go-round was this thing to go round and around and around, and it had bars on it in between. And I remember out there, man, on the playground, and the kids are on there, and they were going around and around on the merry-go-round. And they went round and around on the merry-go-round. I was out there, man, and I wanted to get on too. And there was some little girls standing over there. I'm in the second, third, fourth grade. Over there, there's little girls over there, and man, they was just on sound like, jump, Terry, jump, Terry. And I wanted to show out, man, so there it was, and that thing was going around and around, and I had the encouragement, so I ran up there and I jumped. And when I jumped, the little bar hit my forehead. I didn't hit it hit me. Hit me in the forehead. Watch this. Hit me in the forehead, and I fell down. Listen to me, young people. I missed my Kairos moment. I missed it. And what I hope to do is to help you not to miss your Kairos moment. You don't need to be going through life bumping your head all the time. You want to make sure that you get your Kairos moment. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it simply defines the right time. You got sequential time, chronos, that's everyday time, but within the framework of chronos, you have a Kairos moment. And at the Kairos moment, that is the time that God decides that I'm going to sovereignly do something now within the framework of the chronology. It is God himself deciding to act. It's almost like it was in 1 Chronicles. You don't have to turn to chapter number 12, verse 32. It talks about the sons of Issachar, which were men who had understanding of the times. They knew what to do because they understood the times. You see, when we're living life, we're in chronology. We're living life. We're in February right now. We're living life. March will be here before long. We're living life. It is within the framework of that. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to be aware of the fact that God decides sometimes to intervene to break through the atmosphere of chronology, of chronos, and he himself decides to sovereignly act. The reason why I'm talking about this is that I believe for somebody in here tonight, hallelujah, you are about to hit a Kairos moment. Hallelujah. In your chronology, in your chronos, that God himself is about to step in and act. That God himself is about to move. If you don't mind, help me preach. Look at your neighbor. Just tell them, don't miss your Kairos moment. You don't want to miss your Kairos moment. You don't want to miss that, man. You don't want to miss your Kairos moment. He said, well, why in the world are we in the book of Esther? Some of the characters that you find on the canvas as we peruse through this tonight is you will see Ahasuerus. Ahasuerus would be the king at that particular time. You will see Mordecai. Mordecai is going to be the cousin of Esther. You also will see Esther. She's going to be the little Jewish girl. And you will see Haman. Haman is going to be the hater, who's going to be the perpetrator, going to be the one who is going to try to have all the Jews annihilated. You've already been introduced to Hatak. Hatak was the guy who was running the message back and forth between Esther and Mordecai, because Esther was soon assailed to the position of being the queen, and Mordecai was one of the guys that were working in the court. So Hatak is going to be sending the message back and forth developed between Mordecai and Esther. And so you might say, we're talking about this Kairos moment. What is the event that triggers this particular scene, what we call the scene of such a time as this, such a time as this situation? Because Mordecai tells Esther, who knows that you've been called to the kingdom for such a time as this, such a Kairos moment, such a particular in-season time that God has ordained. And so what was the situation that led up to that? It was that girl Vashti. Vashti and Ahasuerus were married. Vashti was the queen. And Ahasuerus decided to call all of his court together, all of the people from the various regions of his vast empire. And they had a party, and Ahasuerus was partying, not like when you and I throw a party. You have a party, it lasts a day. Ahasuerus has a party, and it lasts 6 months. He said, shut down the whole country, and I'm paying for everything, and y'all ain't got to go to work, and we're going to party. And so that's what was going on. And Ahasuerus, the king, got full of himself, and he decided that, hey, I got all these folks here. I want to show off my wife. I want to show off Vashti. And so that's what he decided to do. And he called her to come in. He says, I just want you to come in and walk down the aisle and parade. I want everybody to see how fine you are, how good looking you are. And Vashti decided, I ain't going to do it. I ain't going to do it. I'm not going to do that. Vashti said, no, I'm not going to do it. So she refused an order from the king in the kingdom. And I'll just pause right there parenthetically and throw it in for free. We are in a kingdom as citizens of the kingdom of God. As children of God, the kingdom is not a democracy. Let me say that again. The kingdom is not a democracy. You don't get a chance to vote in the kingdom of what you want to do and how you want to have church and where you are. No, you don't get a chance to vote. It is not a democracy. It is a theocracy. It is ruled by God. Every kingdom has a king. And Vashti forgot that she was in the position of being queen only at the pleasure of the king. And Vashti decided that I'm not going to be obedient to what the king said, that I want to do my own thing. Can I switch again and let you know that when we're in the kingdom of God, that you and I don't have the luxury of disobeying God. Obedience is mandatory to the king. If we don't obey the king, we can and will be replaced. That's some good stuff right there. We must know, ladies and gentlemen, Vashti decided I'm not going to do it. But here's what she didn't understand. Vashti didn't realize that there was an Esther in an unknown village already practicing to take her position. Some good stuff right there. And Esther was already practicing. Esther was already in the Weems practicing. Esther was already out there in an unknown village walking around with a little thing on her head, prancing around. Esther was already practicing to take Vashti's position and didn't even know it. And can I suggest to you all here tonight that you ain't that big and you ain't that bad. You can be replaced. You can be replaced. As a matter of fact, there's somebody right now already practicing in the shower and can sing better than you. You ain't the baddest thing around. You ain't the best preacher. For all of us preachers, we're not the best preachers. There's somebody in the shower already practicing on hooping. He died. They're already doing that stuff. Man, listen, you can be replaced. Lord. And Vashti is about to be replaced. And can I just push it for you a little bit further? Let me just make sure you can walk out of here with a couple of hard, concrete things here. And when I talk about a Kairos moment, it is a supreme moment. It is a time in which God decides to act. And so here's what I learned. Kairos moments occur, number one, because of positioning. Kairos moments, these moments in which God decides to act, they occur because of positioning. In other words, there are times that God will position you and get you situated for a Kairos moment. A time in which he is about to step in and act. That was in verse number 14. I read it for you. Let me read it one more time. In verse number 14, it says, for if thou altogether, this is Mordecai to Esther, for if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this? When you even think about it, Mordecai is trying to tell Esther something, because here is the setup for that. Esther does take over. There's a beauty pageant that is had, and Esther does win the beauty pageant. And when Esther wins the beauty pageant, watch this, Vashti is dethroned and she's put out, and Esther now takes over. Well, when Esther now is the queen and has taken over, there's a situation that happens between Mordecai and Haman. Haman was a guy who worked in the court of Ahasuerus, and there was this situation going on in which Haman wanted everybody to bow to him, but it was a guy by the name of Mordecai. Mordecai said, I ain't gonna bow. I serve Jehovah God only, and I will not bow to a man. And so Mordecai refused to bow. Well, Haman gets upset, and Haman says, I'm so enraged that I'm going to have all the Jews. I'm going to have your whole people, everybody in your family line, the whole Jewish race, I'm going to have them exterminated. So Haman devises this plot. He gets Ahasuerus to sign off on it, and there's this particular day. If I deal with that particular day, it would be December the 13th. There's this particular day that he puts that said all of the Jews will be killed. Well, when he says that, that's everybody. Now, here it is. Esther is in the palace. Mordecai is on the outside. So all of the Jews are about to be killed. And so here's the conversation that you pick up on in Esther chapter number 4. Mordecai is trying to talk to Esther and warn her of what is going on. That all of your people are about to be killed. And so here it is when we arrive here. That's what we're dealing with. So a Kairos moment will occur because of positioning. In other words, God will allow certain things to happen to put you at the right place at the right time. And I love God for that. It will happen because of positioning. Sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, we have to ask ourselves the why behind the what in respect to what God has done. In other words, why did God put me here? As a matter of fact, if I were to deal with it from the textual standpoint, the circumstances of Esther's being there, of Esther's situation, are phenomenal. How in the world did this little Jewish girl Esther end up there in the first place? Her cousin adopted her. Mordecai's her cousin. Her cousin adopted her when both of her parents died.
Yes.
Interesting. She didn't even know that there was a beauty pageant going on. It's interesting. God fixed it so that Mordecai had a job at the palace. Y'all ain't saying nothing. As pretty and as attractive as Esther was, she had a lot of opportunities to lose her virginity along the way, but God kept her in his positioning to remain a virgin. God kept her because that was one of the requirements for her to become queen. It's amazing how God will do some things. The other contestants, when they had the beauty contest, the other contestants had all of the niceties. But Esther didn't have to use none of that stuff. She was one of the finest women alive in that little unknown village. While they were visiting Victoria's Secrets, Esther was dwelling in the secret place of the Most High. She had it going on. Ladies and gentlemen, it's because of positioning. Sometimes God will just position you. And it's amazing because sometimes you don't know what God is doing. But God will be setting some stuff up, and because you and I say, I will trust in the Lord, he really believes that you're going to trust in him. Which means, can you trust him where you cannot trace him? If you don't say anything, will you still trust him? And so as it relates to that, Esther is involved in this situation. She's being positioned by God. And I love it, saints. I even look back at my own life and see times that God was positioning stuff. It was him positioning. I didn't know what was going on, but it was him positioning stuff. God's ability is powerful, man. He is able to do some amazing things. Sometimes in your life there is positioning. There's a young lady in our church, Pastor Dillon. She was. We have a church in Columbia, Mississippi, and then we planted one in McComb, Mississippi, and then we planted one also in Silver Creek, Mississippi. But check this out, man. We're in Columbia, Mississippi, and there was this young girl going to college at USM. She lived in McComb, Mississippi, but she's going to college at USM in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. She's on her way home one day and get on Highway 98 right outside of Columbia and have a flat.
Come on, yeah.
She have a flat tire. And I watch this. Oftentimes what we would do, we good church folk, we're going to start rebuking the devil. That old devil got in my tire and made me be put on the side of the road. But she was on the flat. But watch how the story goes. She was on the flat on the side of the road, and she was a little disturbed by being on the side of the road as a young woman and on a flat. I got a flat tire. But there was a woman that came by and saw her and stopped. And the woman saw her and stopped and said, "What's going on?" And she said, "I'm on a flat. I got a flat tire." She gets on the phone, call her son. Her son comes out and fixes the flat. Well, while the woman is standing there talking to her while they're working on the flat, she invites her to church.
Come on, man.
She goes to New Life Fellowship Church. She invites her to church. So she get the tire fixed. She go on down the road. And when she get on down the road, it's weeks later, she think about the invitation that somebody gave her to go to church. So she tells her mom about, she comes to church one Sunday. She tells her mom about the church. Her mom comes back to the church one Sunday, and then she's excited about it. She go back and tell some other folks. Watch this. And that's how we planted New Life Fellowship Church in McComb, Mississippi. Okay, you didn't get it. We planted McComb Church because of a flat tire. God can take you somewhere on a flat tire. In the providence of God, because it got to be 15 or 20 people coming there every Sunday to church. Now we have a thriving church down there because what God did in his sovereignty, in his positioning, he let her have the flat at a certain place, at a certain time where the member could come by, because God was in the mix, because it was not about the flat tire, it was about getting her to the church. It's amazing how God knows how to move. He will position your and my life to get at what he wants. Ladies and gentlemen, it's all in the Bible. It was the positioning of God for Esther to become queen. You see grace all in that. If she really wasn't supposed to be queen, it is like you winning the Miss Georgia beauty pageant and you from Mississippi. That don't make no sense. Because what God does is he extends his grace. Mercy is withholding the punishment that one deserves. Grace is giving a person what they don't deserve. And oftentimes in God's grace, he does some things that he wants to do to get you and I where he wants us to be. And so as it relates to a Kairos moment, oftentimes there is positioning, and we have to be aware of the fact that because we belong to God, that I'm not here by accident. We have to be aware of the fact. I'm aware of the fact when I was over with my brother here preaching, it was a wonderful time, but watch, that was a Kairos moment for us. Within the framework, God can set up some stuff, because God said, I want you to be here at this particular time in history. And God set it up. There are Kairos moments that you and I have to be be aware of within the chronos, within the chronology, within the regular time frame. God sometimes will step in and do what he wants to do. So we have to ask ourselves, why did he save me? Why did he place me where he placed me? Why did he have me to meet you? Why did God let me get that job? Why did God allow me to go to that school? Why did I meet that preacher? Why did God let me have that house when I should not have qualified for it? Why did God give me favor with that supervisor? Ladies and gentlemen, it is God positioning us. Can I help you out? Let me remind you of the scripture in Psalms 37, verse number 23. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delighted in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be utterly cast down, for the Lord upholdeth him with his hand. David then goes into testimony. He says, I've been young and now I'm old, yet have I not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. I love it. He says the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. I love that. The steps, that's the Hebrew word misad. Don't worry too much about it. It deals with the goings. It talks about one's life, one way of life. So the steps, one ways of life, the steps of a good man or of a righteous man are ordered by the Lord. That's the Hebrew word kun, and it simply means to be erected. It means to be set up. It means to be fixed or framed. So he said the steps, the goings of a good man are ordered, set up by the Lord. So I love that, man, because I'm on the Lord's side. Bishop, we're on the Lord's side. So what the Lord does is he orders our steps. He fixes our steps. He establishes our steps. He's in control of our steps. He orders our steps. Some of you still looking at me funny. How about this? Romans 8:28 says, and we know. Paul says some things I don't know, but we know. Not some, but all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and those who are the called according to his purpose. All things. Now, nobody didn't say, he didn't say everything would be good. But he said all things would work together for the good. It would work together. Everything ain't going to be good because some things happen to us is not good. But because we belong to God, God will work it together for our good. Back in Laurel, Mississippi, in Queensburg, where I was from, my mama used to love to bake stuff, and I lived on 309 Simmons Street in Laurel, Mississippi, and it was there that my mama would cook food, and she was known for fancy food and food and stuff, and so she would take sometimes on special occasions, she would take eggs, raw eggs that was not good by itself, and she put it in a bowl, and she'd take flour that was not good by itself, and she put it in the bowl. She'd take a little milk that was not good, a little pet milk sometimes, that was not good by itself, and she'd put it in the bowl. And she'd take a little cinnamon stuff that wasn't good by itself and put it in the bowl. And she'd take all of these ingredients that were not good by themselves, and she'd put it in the bowl. But what Mama would do, Mama would take all the ingredients that was not good, put it together and whip it together. She'd work it together. She'd beat it together. Then she'd pour it in a pan. And then she'd put it in the oven. And then it'd come out after some heat. And everybody in the neighborhood would come and say, Miss Weems, let me have some of that cake. Watch it. The stuff was not good by itself. But when Mama worked it together, I wish I could get a witness in Bolton, Mississippi. How many of you like that in your life? You know, some stuff in your life was not good. Maybe that pregnancy out of wedlock was not good. That trip to the prison was not good. Being fired from that job was not good. Being lied on here was not good. But God will take all the not good stuff and work it together. And when God gets through it, you will come out like pure gold. So sometimes stuff don't make no sense. And we have to learn how to deal with stuff that don't make no yourself. And trust that my steps, my brother, are ordered by the Lord. And God is ordering my steps. I remember Channing, working at Hardy's restaurant years ago when I moved to Columbia. I was used to work at Hardy's restaurant. And so I worked at this restaurant and I was a manager, and there was this young lady there, and I was good to the young lady, and I promoted this girl. I promoted her. She was just, cashier, and I promoted her to a supervisor this, and promoted her to another level, and when I got to be the general manager, I promoted her to manager.
All right, man.
Man. And she was the manager of the store, and I was the general manager of the store, and all of a sudden this girl turned on me. Just turned on me, just started being ugly and mean. I know this don't happen in y'all neck of the woods. But I'm like, I've been good to you, girl, and you make more money now than you've ever made in your life. And I'm good to you. And this girl just turned on me. She just started talking about me and lying on me, trying to make me look bad. And when I would take days off work, if I took a day off work and my boss happened to come into town, she'd be planting little stuff. You know how you know what I'm talking about. He asked about something. What about this? I don't know. Mr. Weems done that. You know how you can just say, Mr. Weems did that. And just start trying to make me look bad and all kinds of stuff. And I remember, man, I was going through that, and I got mad because she just kept doing little stuff. I got mad, and I was a preacher, by the way. I got mad, and I prayed, man. I said, Lord, let her do something so I can fire her behind. Okay, y'all don't want me to be real. Hallelujah. I want to get rid of her. Because I'm tired of this foolishness. I'm going to get rid of her behind. And because I was a Christian, because I was a believer, I couldn't fire her for nothing because I'm a righteous person. So I wanted to set it up. Lord, let her do something that I can catch her so I can fire her. And as it relates to that, it seemed like heaven didn't say nothing. I know you ain't ever been there. It looked like the situation got worse and worse. She was just doing all kind of crazy. And I was mad. It went on for months, man. And I was mad. I was like, Lord, why don't you answer my prayer concerning this situation? I'm tired of this foolishness. I want her behind out of here. You ain't gonna be stabbing me in my back like that and dogging me out like that, and you stand here. No, you getting up out of here. And the Lord never said nothing. And that went on for months. But here's what happened, Pastor, because I knew she was watching me. I started to make sure everything was right in order. If I knew I was going to be off the next day, I went the extra step. If I was going to be going on vacation, I went extra. Make sure everybody's in uniforms. Make sure the turnover rate is down. Make sure the food cost is down. I went through all these procedures. And by habit, I just started doing things because I didn't want her to have nothing to say. It went on for months. And I questioned the Lord again about, Lord, won't you let her do something so I can fire her behind? And the Lord never did say nothing until months later. It was about a year later, my supervisor from Mobile, Alabama came to the store.